The wind howls across the barren cliffs of Ladakh as dawn bleeds like a wound over the snow. Beneath the shadow of a forgotten monastery, an old monk kneels beside a half-buried door carved into the stone. His breath trembles like prayer smoke, each exhale a secret whispered to the earth. Behind him, Mira lowers her lantern, its flame quivering in the thin air. "You said this place was sealed for centuries," she murmurs. "So it was," the monk replies, "until it chose to open." As the door groans, dust spills like ancient sighs. Within, walls shimmer with gold leaf script, verses written in both Pali and Aramaic. Mira's eyes widen. The monk bows. "These are the words of Ayasa," he whispers, "the one who walked between worlds." The silence that follows feels heavier than revelation. The air itself afraid to remember. Night settles over the camp. Mira sits by a dying fire, the manuscript wrapped in linen beside her. The monk chants softly, voice fragile yet timeless. She studies his face and asks, "Who was he?" "Ie say." The monk gazes at the stars. "A seeker," he murmurs. "One who sought truth beyond his birth." He tells her of the young man who came from the west, dressed in dust and silence, who spoke of love that did not divide. Some said he was mad. The monk smiles faintly. Others said he had seen the face of truth. Mira listens, the flames reflecting in her eyes, realizing the story is not history. It is prophecy repeating itself through her hands. By morning, the manuscript is open, its ink breathing again after centuries of silence. Mira reads the first passage aloud. "Blessed are those who seek not to conquer heaven, but to awaken within it." Her voice trembles. The monk smiles. He knows the rhythm of that truth. As she turns the pages, she sees sketches of a traveler standing before stupas, kneeling beside monks. "He learned from them," she whispers. The old monk nods. "He learned that even the divine must bow to impermanence." The wind carries incense from the monastery above, and for a moment, Mira feels as if Isa himself watches through her eyes, learning once more through her heart. In a sudden hush, the monk grows solemn. He tells Mira that the scroll is only a fragment. The rest lies deeper within the monastery, sealed beneath vows and fear. Those who kept it swore never to speak, for kings and priests both would burn what bridges truth builds. His eyes meet hers. "But you are not bound by their silence." Mira hesitates. She senses the cost of this path, yet something ancient inside her answers the call. The same pulse that once drew Isa across deserts. The monk hands her a string of prayer beads. "If you go," he says, "you must not look for proof, only reflection." As dawn rises again, Mira enters the monastery alone. The air inside tastes of dust and forgotten prayers. Murals on the walls show scenes that defy time. A robed man with a halo kneeling before a lotus throne. The image blurs between Isa and Buddha until their forms become one. Mira stands motionless, her heart pounding. Outside, the wind moans like memory itself. Somewhere deep within, a whisper seems to echo. The path is not to find another truth. It is to remember it. She closes her eyes, letting the mountain breathe through her. The silence answers, ancient and alive. The story drifts backward through centuries. Sand becomes memory, memory becomes wind. A lone traveler crosses the Sind desert, his robe torn, eyes fixed on a horizon that refuses to end. Ayase has walked for months, guided only by silence. Villagers call him the man who listens to the wind. At dusk, he reaches a riverbank where saffron-robed monks bathe in prayer. One elder steps forward, Tenzin, his gaze deep as a still lake. "You seek water for the body," Tenzin says. "But your thirst is not of this world," Ayase bows. too weary to answer. The monk gestures toward the mountains. Then follow me, and lose what you think you are. High in the foothills, Ayase walks beside Tenzin. For days they exchange no words, only gestures. The offering of water, the passing of firewood, the sharing of breath in cold dawns. The silence becomes its own language. On the fifth night, they rest beneath a starlit banyan. Do you know why silence is sacred? Tenzin asks. Isa shakes his head. Because silence never lies, the monk replies. A faint smile crosses Isa's lips. He realizes this path is not to learn new truth, but to forget the noise of his own voice. Weeks pass. Ayase learns to chant in Pali, to sit unmoving as the dawn burns and fades. Yet doubt stirs. One morning he sees a wounded bird struggling beside the temple steps. While others walk past, he kneels, cradling it gently. Tenzin watches. Why do you interfere? He asks. Because it suffers. Then you suffer, replies Tenzin. For you cannot let the world be as it is. Ayase looks down at the bird in his hands, breath fading, wings trembling. Perhaps love, he whispers, is the suffering we choose. Tenzin turns away. But there is softness in his silence. In the mountain monastery, Ayase sits among novices, learning the way of the breath. The sound of chanting fills the stone hall, rhythmic as the sea. His mind drifts. Visions of a cross, of distant seas, of a mother's voice calling his name. When the session ends, Tenzin approaches and places a hand on his shoulder. You cannot serve two masters, he says gently. Either you awaken, or you remember. Ayase meets his gaze. Perhaps they are the same. For the first time, Tenzin laughs softly. Then we shall see if the wind agrees. That night, the wind howls through the valley. Ayase stands at the cliff's edge, robes whipping like flames. Below, the river glimmers like liquid moonlight. He feels both infinite and fragile, a man caught between faiths, between lifetimes. Tenzin joins him. You still look west, the monk says. There is something unfinished. Isa's voice is steady. There is always something unfinished, even in heaven. The two stand in silence as thunder rolls beyond the peaks. For the first time, the monk bows to the traveler. Then, I say, he murmurs, perhaps you were never meant to arrive, only to awaken. The monsoon arrives like a living dream, thunder rolling through the valley, rain carving rivers into the stone. Ayasa sweeps the temple floor as lightning flashes through carved windows. Each sound of the broom becomes a heartbeat, each drop a question. When Tenzin approaches, Ayase stops. I saw him again. Ayase murmurs. The one I left behind. The father. Tenzin studies him in silence. The one you left, he says softly. Or the one you cannot leave. Ayase turns toward the storm. Both, he whispers. The rain falls harder, blurring the horizon as if heaven itself cannot decide which voice to follow. In the temple garden, Tenzin leads Ayase to a pond still as polished stone. Look, he says. Ayase gazes at his reflection and sees two faces. His own and another, luminous, crowned by light. Who are you? Tenzin asks. Ayase breathes shakily. The Son of God. Then where is your God now? Silence. Only the sound of rippling water. Tenzin kneels, touching the pond. The reflection is truth only until the wind moves it. The divine is not seen. It is remembered. Ayase watches the surface still again, his reflection dissolving into endless sky. Later that day, Ayase teaches the novices without permission. He speaks of love beyond name, compassion beyond creed. The seed of heaven, he tells them, does not belong to any one tree. His words stir something forbidden. Faith that walks without walls. Tenzin arrives mid-sermon, his expression unreadable. The novices bow, but Isa does not. I only speak what I have seen, Isa says. And what have you seen? Asks Tenzin. Isa's voice trembles. A world without borders. The hall falls silent. Somewhere, a bell tolls, not of warning, but awakening. Night descends. Isa sits alone beneath a bodhi tree. The air hums with cicadas, rain still dripping from leaves. He whispers a prayer, half in Aramaic, half in Pali. Words born between two worlds. A vision rises before him. Buddha seated beside a cross of light, each dissolving into the other. Am I betraying one truth for another? He asks the silence. The answer comes not in words, but in the trembling of the earth, the pulse of everything breathing together. For a fleeting instant, Isa smiles through tears. He understands. Love and emptiness are not opposites. They are mirrors. Before dawn, Tenzin summons Issei to the cliff again. The wind howls like a prophet. You have learned much, Tenzin says, but knowledge is still a mirror. Break it. Issei looks down into the misty valley. If I break it, he says, I may lose the face of God. Tenzin steps closer, his voice steady. Then lose it and see what remains. Issei closes his eyes. The first light of day rises over the mountains, washing both men in gold. In that light, Issei sees not two paths, but one infinite silence stretching in every direction. Dawn spills across the valley in pale fire. A cry echoes through the monastery. A child collapsed near the gate. Isa rushes forward, his robe catching the wind. The boy's body is still, breath faint as candle smoke. Monks gather, murmuring prayers, waiting for impermanence to complete its work. Isa kneels, hands trembling. He still breathes, he whispers. Do not interfere, warns Tenzin from behind. Voice calm, but edged. Isa looks up, eyes blazing. Compassion is not interference. He presses his palms over the boy's heart and prays in silence. The air hums, the light bends. The child exhales, eyes fluttering open. The crowd gasps. The miracle is complete, yet peace does not follow. The monastery erupts in whispers. Some monks bow before Isa, calling him Bodhisattva. Others avert their eyes, fearing blasphemy. Tenzin sits alone in the meditation hall, his beads unmoving. When Isa enters, their silence cuts like thunder. You broke the vow, Tenzin says quietly. No power may disturb the balance. Isa answers, I did not seek power, only mercy. Tenzin looks up. Mercy without wisdom becomes pride. Isa's breath shakes. Then let me bear that pride if it keeps one child from dying. Their gazes lock, student and teacher divided by the meaning of love. Night deepens. Isa prays alone in the sanctuary, the boy's laughter echoing faintly in his mind. If love leads to exile, he whispers, then so be it. He remembers his mother's voice, the sea, the cross of stars he saw as a child. He feels the weight of two heavens pulling against his heart. Behind him, Tenzin's footsteps approach. You are torn between two skies, the monk says. You cannot dwell in both. Isa turns, tears glimmering. Then I shall walk where they meet. Tenzin's eyes soften, not in forgiveness, but recognition of a truth too great to cage. At dawn, the abbot of the monastery arrives, an elder with eyes like winter. He decrees that Isa must depart. Our way is stillness, he says. Yours is fire. Tenzin bows in obedience, but his heart cracks beneath the gesture. Ayase says nothing. He only folds his robe and places his prayer beads on the altar. If I'm to go, he murmurs, then may I walk as the wind does. Without home, yet touching all things. The abbot nods once. The monks lower their heads. As Isa turns to leave, Tenzin whispers, "Every exile is a teaching." Isa answers, "Every teaching, a return." Iz descends the mountain path alone. The world below is veiled in silver mist. Each step echoes like a heartbeat fading into eternity. At the ridge, he stops and looks back. The monastery gleams faintly, its prayer flags fluttering in the wind like souls longing to be free. In the distance, Tenzin watches unseen, his eyes wet but unblinking. Ayase touches his chest where the beads once hung and smiles faintly. All paths return to silence, he whispers, before vanishing into the valley's fog. Not as a savior, not as a monk, but as the stillness between both. The valley is silent, broken only by the murmur of the river. Isa sits cross-legged on a flat stone, watching sunlight scatter over the water. Tenzin approaches, his robe flowing like liquid gold in the morning breeze. "You have walked far, Ayasa," he says, "but distance does not purify the heart." Ayase bows slightly. "Then teach me." Tenzin kneels opposite him, eyes steady. To awaken, one must confront the light within, not in triumph, but in surrender. Ayase nods, feeling the weight of truth pressing into his chest. A fire without heat, a wind that touches everything and nothing. Tenzin begins the trial with words sharper than the mountain wind. "You cling to miracles and compassion alike," he says. "Do you heal to serve others, or to see yourself in their suffering?" Isa's chest tightens. Ayasa's chest tight. "I do not know," he admits, eyes downcast. Tenzin rises and stretches out his hand. "Then you shall learn by renunciation. For 1 week, no words, no touch, no attempt to change the world. Only presence." Ayase bows, heart rebelling. But he accepts, a seed planted in the barren soil of doubt. Days pass. Ayase walks the forest without speaking. Birds land on his shoulders, streams bend around his bare feet. He watches suffering, joy, birth, and death without interference. Each moment stretches into infinity. At night, Tenzin approaches, placing a hand on Isa's shoulder. "Do you feel it?" he asks. Ayase opens his eyes, seeing his reflection in a pool of water, not as savior, not as man, but as fleeting awareness. "I feel everything, yet I am not everything." Tenzin smiles, a rare warmth. Then the light has found its mirror. On the 7th day, Tenzin brings Isa to the peak overlooking the valley below. The wind cuts sharply, carrying the scent of pine and snow. "Your final lesson," Tenzin says. "Do not hold to what you have learned. Let it go as the river lets go of rain." Ayase closes his eyes, recalling all he has seen: suffering, love, miracles, compassion. Slowly, he stretches out his hands and releases the prayer beads into the wind. They tumble and disappear into the clouds. "It is done," Ayase whispers, feeling a quiet laughter inside his chest, the echo of both heaven and earth. As the sun rises, Ayase and Tenzin descend the mountain in silence. Each step is unhurried, deliberate. A dance with impermanence. Isa feels the world flowing through him without grasping. At the river's edge, Tenzin stops. "You are free, Ayasa. But remember, freedom is not leaving, it is being." Ayase nods, eyes bright with understanding. He gazes at the flowing water, seeing not the end, but the eternal path of love and detachment intertwine. They part with a simple bow. A teacher and student who have transcended labels, each walking into the Valley of Awakening. The mountains loom in mist, silent witnesses to the world below. Ayasa walks alone, robe brushing frozen stones, each step a prayer in itself. He recalls every face he has healed, every hand he has touched, every life he has altered. His heart swells with longing, yet emptiness answers. A cold wind bites at his cheeks as he whispers, "All I have left is the path itself." Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls, not for wandering, but for remembering. Issei lifts his gaze toward the horizon, seeing dawn begin as a thin silver line across the peaks. Ayasa reaches a deserted temple ruin, walls cracked by centuries, adorned with faded murals of lotus and cross intertwined. He kneels among broken stones, hands resting on the cold floor. "I am nothing," he whispers, voice carried by the wind. Yet in the stillness he feels a pulse, life flowing in every crack, every echo. He closes his eyes, surrendering his past, his fame, his miracles. In the quiet he is both lost and found. The universe hums softly, welcoming him into its infinite rhythm. Night falls swiftly, as if impatient. Isa sits under a lone pine, snow settling around him. Memories of his journey rise, compassion and miracles, devotion and pride. "Am I undone?" he murmurs. The answer comes not in voice, but in breath. The rhythm of the universe mirrored in his chest. He inhales the cold night air and exhales surrender. Stars flicker overhead, each a reminder that impermanence is eternal and silence carries its own light. At the break of midnight, a storm sweeps the peaks, wind and snow lashing against him. Isa rises robes, whipping violently, heart pounding with the fury of nature itself. Lightning splits the sky, illuminating the valley below in stark white. He lifts his face and raises his arms, not in prayer or command, but in full surrender. "Let it all go," he cries, voice merging with thunder. And in that roar, he finds the echo of the Buddha's final lesson. True awakening is not grasped, it is released. As dawn finally breaks, Isa descends the mountain alone. Snow melting into streams beneath his feet. The storm has passed, leaving air crisp and still. Every step feels like a heartbeat in a timeless rhythm. He touches the water of a cold spring, sees his reflection, not as a savior, not as a monk, not even as a man, but as the endless silence between birth and death. And for the first time, he smiles fully, knowing that awakening is not a destination, but the breath of existence itself. Centuries later, Mira stands in the Himalayan cave where the scroll was first discovered, now aged and dust-laden. Her fingers brush the brittle pages, tracing the gold-leaf Aramaic and Pali letters. The wind whistles through the stone doorway, carrying whispers of ancient footsteps. She murmurs, "Isa, Tenzin, what did you see that we cannot?" The words hang in the air as if the mountains themselves answer. Outside, snow drifts softly and sunlight spills over jagged peaks. Mira realizes that history is not simply written. It is remembered in silence, in the spaces between breath and word. Mira carefully unfolds a fragment depicting Issei kneeling beneath a bodhi tree, Tenzin beside him, both radiant in soft golden light. She studies the sketch, heart quickening. "So he did walk the path," she whispers. "Between worlds." A thought strikes her. This is not just history. It is a map of awakening, a bridge between East and West, a lesson lost to time. Her eyes fill with tears. For a moment, she feels herself standing on the same mountains, walking the same silent trails. Night falls outside the cave. Mira lights a small fire and sets the scroll before her. She closes her eyes, imagining Isa and Tenzin walking silently across the mountains, teaching without words, healing without pride, surrendering to the wind. In the flickering light, the two figures appear alive again, not as myths, not as saints, but as embodiments of awakening. Mira breathes deeply, sensing that history and spirit are inseparable. Knowledge is fleeting. Insight endures. As dawn touches the peaks, Mira steps outside, holding the scroll gently against her chest. She gazes across the valley, imagining the winds carrying Isa's and Tenzin's footsteps across the mountains. Perhaps, she whispers, the world has always been this path, not divided by names, not bound by history, but united by awakening. She smiles, a quiet, knowing smile. The mountains hum softly, the river below glistening like liquid memory. In that moment, past and present converge into a single, infinite breath. Mira places the scroll back into the cave, her hands lingering on the worn parchment. She steps back, bows lightly, and turns to descend the mountain. The wind lifts her hair, carrying the faint echo of ancient voices, Ayasa whispering compassion, Tenzin teaching surrender. She smiles as she walks into the valley below, understanding that the greatest gospel is not written on pages, but remembered in silence, in reflection. In the quiet awakening of the heart, the mountains stand eternal, the scroll hidden yet alive, and the cycle of learning continues without end.